This pickup was rated to carry just 500 pounds, cost 26 grand, and in 1991, it beat a brand new Ferrari to 60 and threw the quarter mile. Then GMC canceled it. That is the part everyone remembers. The little black GMC Syclone lined up against a Ferrari 340 Uritis in Car and Driver's September 1991 issue and walked away with the number that mattered. The Ferrari cost $180. The GMC, as tested, cost $26,120. One came from Maranello with a mid-mounted V8 and a 5-speed gated shifter. The other looked like a compact truck someone had lowered, blacked out, and given a bad attitude. The insult was not subtle. Car and Driver measured the Syclone at 5.3 seconds from 0 to 60. The Ferrari needed 6.0. Through the quarter mile, the GMC ran 14.1 seconds at 93 miles per hour. The Ferrari ran 14.5 at 99. That last number matters because it already gives away the truth. The Ferrari was faster once the road opened up. It had the aerodynamics, the revs, the top speed, the expensive Italian machinery. The Syclone won because the race began from a dead stop. And from a dead stop, this thing was vicious. The Syclone was not born from a normal truck planning meeting. No one sat in a clean corporate conference room and said, "America needs a pickup that cannot tow properly, but can embarrass sports cars." The origin was messier, more 1980s GM, and much stranger. The seed came from Buick performance thinking. When the Grand National was fading out, the obvious question inside the performance crowd was simple. What happens if that turbocharged attitude gets stuffed into a compact pickup? A turbo V6 S10 prototype was built, borrowing the Grand National spirit and turning a cheap little truck into something dangerous. Chevrolet passed. That alone could have killed the idea. GMC did not pass. There was a problem though. Using the Buick 3.8 liter turbo V6 would have been too expensive and too awkward for the program. So the final truck went a different way. GMC kept the compact SE series platform, kept the turbocharged sleeper philosophy, but based the production Syclone around the 4.3 liter V6 already tied to GM truck hardware. That decision sounds like a compromise. In reality, it made the truck meaner. The 4.3 was not exotic. It was an iron, pushrod, truck-derived V6, the kind of engine that usually lived under the hood of work vehicles and family haulers. But with a turbocharger, water-to-air intercooling, stronger internal pieces, and careful calibration, it became a blunt instrument. The production number was 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. In 1991, in a compact pickup, those were not cute numbers. In Troy, Michigan, Production Automotive Services, PS, turned the idea into the real thing. The Syclone was not just a Sonoma with decals. PS was the specialty outfit that made this weird corporate experiment buildable. Drivetrain changes, turbo hardware, suspension tuning, visual pieces, calibration, the whole package. The truck still looked like something from the small pickup aisle. Underneath, it had been taught a very specific trick. Launch hard. Hook instantly. End the race early. By the time the Syclone reached the street, its whole personality had narrowed into one brutal number, 14.1 seconds. Before YouTube, before comment sections, before a drag strip clip could travel across the world in an hour, a magazine test number could still detonate. And this one did. A pickup running 14.1 in 1991 was already absurd. A pickup doing it against a Ferrari was the kind of fact that sounded fake until you saw the data table. The engine was only half the story. The Syclone's 4.3 liter turbo V6 made 14 pounds of boost and delivered peak torque low enough to matter immediately. But turbo power by itself can be messy. Rear drive muscle cars knew that problem well. Too much torque, too little grip, smoke instead of acceleration. The Syclone solved that by refusing to behave like a traditional muscle car. It used a 4-speed automatic, and that mattered. The torque converter helped load the engine into boost before the truck moved hard. The driver did not have to juggle a clutch, protect a transmission, or modulate wheel spin like a street racer trying to save face. Foot on brake, throttle up, boost building, release, and the little black truck left like it had been kicked forward. Then came the all-wheel drive. The Borg-Warner transfer case sent power with a rear bias, 65% to the back and 35% to the front. That split gave the Syclone the attitude of a rear drive machine with the bite of something much harder to fluster. 4 tires were working before the Ferrari had fully organized itself. The Ferrari 340T was not helpless. It made 296 horsepower from a 3.4-litre V8, revved higher, sounded better. And once it got moving, it was entering its own world. That is why it trapped 99 miles per hour in the quarter, while the Syclone trapped 93. Give the Ferrari half a mile, or a rolling start, or a long empty highway, and the truck's boxy body starts paying tax to the wind. Car and driver showed that clearly. The Ferrari's top speed was 106.6. The Syclone's was 126. But America did not build the legend on top speed. The legend came from the traffic light. The strange part is that the Syclone's greatest engineering victory also explains why the truck was almost doomed from the beginning. To beat a Ferrari from a stop, GMC had to make choices that worked beautifully for acceleration and terribly for pickup duty. The payload rating was just 500 pounds. That is the sentence that turns the whole story. A compact GMC pickup, sold by a truck division, wearing a bed, could barely carry what many normal owners would throw into the back on a Saturday. The factory did not recommend towing either. So the object that looked like a pickup had been stripped of the reason most people bought pickups. The bed was still there. It just became part of the disguise. Open the tailgate, and the contradiction is almost funny. You see the familiar pickup shape, the flat load floor, the promise of utility. But the Syclone had low-profile performance tires, sport suspension, full-time all-wheel drive hardware, and a drivetrain tuned around launches, not lumber. Load it like a work truck, and you are fighting the machine's whole purpose. There is a fair defense of GMC here. A performance car does not get judged by how much gravel it can haul. A Corvette does not become a failure because it cannot tow a trailer. If the Syclone was secretly a sports car in pickup clothing, then maybe the 500-pound payload was just the price of entry. That argument works, until you remember where it was being sold. GMC customers were used to capability. Trucks had to justify themselves in practical language, even when buyers wanted image. The Syclone asked them to accept the opposite. Pay sports car money for a compact pickup that was much worse than a normal pickup at normal pickup things. That is a hard sell, even when the launch is unbelievable. The braking numbers add one more twist. Car and driver measured the Syclone stopping from 70 miles per hour in 183 feet, 4 feet shorter than the Ferrari. Part of that came from the truck's ABS and the way weight transferred forward under hard braking. Empty pickups often have light rear ends. Under panic braking, the rear drums were not carrying the whole burden. Again, GMC had accidentally shaped the truck around the conditions of a performance test. Fast from zero. Stable under hard stop. Brutal in the short run. Terrible at being ordinary. GMC built just 2,995 Syclones for 1991. Then, depending on how you count the final leftovers, 3 more appeared for 1992. That is it. A machine that had just become one of the most talked about performance vehicles in America barely got a second breath. The easy version is to say GMC killed it because it was too powerful, too embarrassing, too wild. That is the legend talking. The business reality was colder. The Syclone was expensive to build, narrow in appeal, and confusing in the showroom. It was not a cheap truck. It was not a useful truck. It was not a traditional sports car. It was not even a clean fit for the people who understood performance, because they still had to explain why their performance machine had a pickup bed it could barely use. GMC did not completely abandon the idea. The Typhoon followed, using the same turbocharged all-wheel drive philosophy in a Jimmy-based SUV. That body made more sense. An SUV did not have to prove itself by carrying plywood or towing a boat in the same way. It could be fast, strange, luxurious, and still useful enough to make the concept easier to defend. That says a lot about the Syclone. The drivetrain was not the mistake. The package was the problem. The little black pickup had created a new category and trapped itself inside it. Later, performance trucks would come back with bigger engines, bigger bodies, louder identities. Ford Lightning, Dodge Ram SRT-10, supercharged modern pickups, off-road monsters with absurd horsepower. But most of them were not trying to do what the Syclone did. They were muscle trucks. The Syclone was more like a compact AEWD launch weapon wearing a truck costume. That is why nothing really replaced it. Today, the market treats the Syclone exactly like a cancelled legend. Not as a used Sonoma, not as a normal collectible truck. As a short-run performance artifact, from a moment when GM still had enough internal weirdness to let a thing like this escape. Recent market tracking shows why people still chase them. Classic.com lists an average sale price in the mid $40,000 range, with recorded sales stretching from under $20,000 for rougher examples to $130,000 for the highest recorded sale. Hagerty's public guide shows a good condition value around the high 20s, but the real market changes wildly with mileage, originality, and whether the truck still feels like the black 1991 time capsule people remember. That spread makes sense. A Syclone is not just bought as transportation, it is bought as a story with a VIN. And the story works because it is so easy to picture. A red Ferrari, low and expensive, waiting for the obvious result. A black GMC pickup beside it, square, compact, almost unserious. The light changes. The turbo is already awake. The automatic hits. 4 tires bite. For the first few seconds, the entire hierarchy of automotive status gets dragged behind a truck that was never supposed to be invited. Then the race ends before the Ferrari can fix the insult. That is the real secret of the Syclone. It did not beat Ferrari at being Ferrari. It beat Ferrari by choosing a smaller battlefield and becoming almost perfect there. Quarter mile, standing start, cool air, boost ready, all-wheel drive loaded. No drama, no smoke, no Italian ceremony, just gone. GMC killed it after one real model year because the same formula that made it legendary made it commercially awkward. Too compromised for truck buyers, too truck-shaped for sports car buyers, too expensive for the casual crowd, too strange for long-term corporate patience. That is why the Syclone still matters. It proves that sometimes the most memorable performance machines are not the balanced ones, or the sensible ones, or even the ones that last. Sometimes the legend is the thing that works brilliantly for one narrow, stupid, glorious purpose, and fails almost everywhere else. Was the Syclone a pickup, a sports car, or a factory-built street racing loophole? Drop your answer in the comments. And the Syclone was not even the first time a truck embarrassed every car in America. 13 years earlier, Dodge did it with a loophole. And in the next video, we go back to 1978, when America's fastest vehicle was a truck nobody expected.